Wow, you weren't kidding about doing your homework on MDR, huh? This stack of data sheets is seriously impressive. You've really gone all in on exploring cybersecurity options, so this must be a top priority right now. What's got you so focused on MDR?
Well, it's smart to be thorough. The MDR market is, well, it's QGE, but that's actually good news for you.
That's so.
It means there's a higher chance of finding that perfect fit for your specific needs. There's definitely a solution out there for everyone. Before we even get into the specifics of each provider, though, can you tell us a bit about your current security setup? What are your biggest pain points, and what are you hoping an MDR service can help you achieve?
Okay, let's unpack this stack of data sheets. Let's start with Bitdefender. The first thing that jumps out at me is their tagline, analysis, not alerts. I have to admit that really resonates with me. Feeling overwhelmed by security alerts can actually work against you when it comes to spotting real threats.
Absolutely. I see why that resonates with you. They're definitely addressing a common pain point for security teams. Alert fatigue is a real problem. What's fascinating to me, though, is how much emphasis Bitdefender is putting on their threat intelligence network.
Yeah, they say it spans hundreds of millions of endpoints. That's a lot of data.
It is, and they're using it to proactively hunt for threats instead of just reacting to them after the fact.
So they're not just waiting for the alarm to go off, they're actively patrolling the perimeter. That makes sense, especially when you're dealing with potential threats to any source 7. Something else that caught my eye was this whole idea of pre-approved actions for incident response. It makes sense to be fast, but does that take away some control from the client?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's a trade-off for sure. Bitdefender is essentially saying, we've analyzed millions of threats, we know what works to neutralize them, so trust us to take the wheel. Some organizations might be perfectly fine with that, others might be hesitant to give up that level of control.
Okay, so it depends on your risk tolerance and internal capabilities.
Got it.
Let's shift gears here to ESET. Their approach seems to be centered around a strong sense of support.
Yeah, you see that in their messaging a lot. Partnership, guidance, being there for you every step of the way. But don't let that friendly exterior fool you. Their technological backbone is solid. They talk a lot about something called LiveSense. Basically, it's a cloud-based system that analyzes potential threats in real time. And I mean real time, constantly analyzing, using behavioral analysis and machine learning.
So are they trying to say they can identify new threats that traditional signature-based methods might miss?
That's exactly what they're saying. And they're also big on the zero trust approach to security.
Right, the idea that you should never automatically trust anything inside or outside your network.
Precisely. Always verify.
Makes sense, especially these days. Okay, on to Carbonite WeBrute now. One thing that immediately stood out to me about them was their focus on minimizing disruption to business.
You and them both. They really hone in on that need for businesses to stay up and running no matter what. Remember that stat they highlighted? The one about it taking weeks for small and medium-sized businesses to discover they've had a breach.
Yeah, that's a chilling thought.
For sure, especially considering the cost of downtime, both financially and in terms of reputation. And it's not just talk. A key part of their strategy is their partnership with Blackpoint.
That's where their SNET defense platform comes in, right?
Exactly. It's all about combining advanced threat intelligence with endpoint detection and response EDR and human expertise to provide that multi-layered protection we keep talking about.
Okay, let's talk about CrowdStrike. They make a bold claim right out of the gate. They say using their platform is like having 5 expert SOC analysts and 5 elite threat hunters all working for you. Ambitious.
They're not lacking in confidence. But they've got some street cred, including their breach prevention warranty. They're putting their money where their mouth is, basically saying they're so sure of their ability to prevent breaches that they're willing to share the risk.
Wow. It seems like they're really emphasizing the human element, which is interesting because we often think of cybersecurity as being all about technology, but...
Right. But at the end of the day, it's still human expertise that makes all the difference. Even with all the fancy tools at your disposal, they're really pushing their Falcon Complete team.
Would you?
Basically, a group of seasoned cybersecurity professionals with experience in everything from threat hunting to digital forensics. They're like that elite special forces team that's always ready to be deployed, and they've got the client list to back it up.
You're talking about the Mercedes-AMG, Petronas, Formula One team, Virgin Hyperloop, everybody, right?
Yep. Organizations that demand the absolute best in terms of security, so the fact that they trust CrowdStrike definitely means something.
Okay, let's move on to Kaspersky. Their thing is no-nonsense threat hunting, right? I notice they're all about proactivity, less reacting, more hunting down threats.
Totally. They're like the detectives of the cybersecurity world, constantly gathering intel, looking for clues, and they don't shy away from talking about their threat intelligence expertise. I mean, they've been doing this for decades, building a reputation for having some of the best threat analysts out there. And a lot of that comes from their research and development.
Right, they're always publishing reports on the latest threats and vulnerabilities, not just selling a product, actually contributing to the global fight against cybercrime. I like that.
Something else I wanted to ask you about with Kaspersky is their two-tiered service, MDR Optimum and MDR Expert. What's that all about?
It's simple. They recognize that not every organization is ready for a fully customized, hands-on MDR experience. Some might just need a more automated, streamlined approach, maybe because they're just starting out. And that's where MDR Optimum comes in.
So that's their entry-level package?
Right, but it's still built on their robust EDR platform and their giant threat intelligence database. But for those organizations that need more flexibility and control, there's MDR Expert. So that's where you get access to their top-tiered security analysts.
Exactly. To customize your security posture, tailor your incident response plan and all that. It's like having a dedicated team of cybersecurity consultants on call 24/7.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's shift gears again, this time to OpenText. Their big thing is data analytics, yeah. They boast a 99% detection rate, which is impressive.
Very impressive. But for me, what really makes them stand out is their focus on threat intelligence integration.
Which basically means?
It means they're not just looking for anomalies in your data, they're analyzing those anomalies in the context of known threats, vulnerabilities, attack patterns, like a detective who's also a forensic scientist.
They're not just trying to solve the crime, they're trying to understand the mind of the criminal.
Yeah.
I like it. And they offer different tiers of service, too.
They do, yeah. Essentials, Professional, and Enterprise, each with its own set of features and pricing, of course. So again, you can choose the level of protection and support that works best for you.
Okay, moving on to Sophos now. I was really struck by their emphasis on maximizing the ROI of your existing security stack. They get that not everyone wants to rip and replace their whole system.
Totally. They're all about pragmatism. Their adaptive cybersecurity ecosystem is all about integrating with what you already have, not forcing you to start from scratch. It's like a bridge, between where you are now and a more robust future with MDR.
And that bridge can connect to a lot of different places, right? They're compatible with a lot of other vendors.
Yeah. Microsoft, CrowdStrike, AWS, Google. It's a long list. They're vendor agnostic, which gives you so much more flexibility and control over your security.
That's huge, especially these days when everything seems to want to lock you into their ecosystem. It shows real confidence in their tech, too.
For sure. They're not trying to be everything to everyone, just the best at what they do.
Okay, last but not least, we have ThreatDown, powered by Malwarebytes. Their messaging seems to be very focused on making MDR accessible for everyone, but especially for constrained security teams.
Totally. Security without stress is the vibe I get. They're trying to address that feeling of being overwhelmed by just the sheer volume of threats out there.
It can definitely feel like you're drowning in alerts sometimes.
Exactly. And they're going for a more streamlined, no-frills approach to MDR.
But does that mean they're cutting corners when it comes to protection?
That's a fair question. I don't think so. They're built on Malwarebytes' EDR platform, which is no slouch. They've consistently gotten top rankings in independent security tests.
So it sounds like they've taken a powerful engine and put it in a more user-friendly car.
That's a great way to put it. And let's not forget their deployment process super fast. They say you can be up and running within minutes, which is practically unheard of with some of these other providers.
Yeah, some of them take days or weeks just to get you going.
Exactly. So that speed and agility can be a game changer, especially for a smaller team with limited resources.
Time is definitely of the essence when it comes to cybersecurity. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, explored a wide range of MDR providers, each with its own unique strengths, weaknesses, and areas of focus. What have we learned?
We learned there's no magic one-size-fits-all solution when it comes to MDR.
And before you even think about choosing a provider,
you need to carefully consider your own specific needs, resources, and risk tolerance.
So much good info here. Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll dive a little deeper into some of the key factors you should consider when evaluating these providers. So we went from a mountain of MDR data sheets to, well, almost a tasting menu of providers. But now comes the hard part. How do we actually choose?
That's the million-dollar question, right? It's tempting to just go with the shiniest option or the one with the most impressive marketing, but
Right. It's about finding the solution that actually addresses your pain points. Remember how you were saying that minimizing business disruption was a big one for you?
it's huge.
And Carbonite Whiproot seemed to really hone in on that with their whole pitch about the cost of downtime and how their SNAP defense platform could help.
It's definitely one of their strongest selling points. They're not just trying to sell you on the tech. They're painting a picture of what a successful attack could cost you. Remember that stat they cited about SMB breaches taking weeks to even be discovered? That's the kind of thing that can sink a business.
It's scary stuff. And that's what Carbonite Whiproot is really trying to prevent, right? Those worst case scenarios.
Exactly. They want to be the safety net that catches you before you hit the ground.
Okay, but they weren't the only ones talking about business continuity. What about Sophos? They seem to get that ripping and replacing your entire security setup can be super disruptive in itself.
Right, which is why they're so focused on integration and compatibility. Remember how they kept talking about their adaptive cybersecurity ecosystem? It's all about working with what you already have, not forcing you to start from scratch.
Yeah, that flexibility could be really important. It's like they're offering you a bridge, you know? You don't have to jump across a chasm. You can walk there at your own pace.
Exactly. You can bring your existing security tools and technologies with you. You're not leaving anything behind.
Okay, that makes sense.
Hmm.
What about my other big concern? Managing all this with limited resources. ThreatDown really seemed to get that, emphasizing their streamlined approach and their super fast deployment time.
It's definitely their way of standing out in a crowded market. And for a lot of organizations, it's the right approach. Not everyone has the budget or the bandwidth for a complex MDR solution.
It can feel really overwhelming. But does that mean they're sacrificing protection for simplicity?
That's what you have to ask yourself, right? But for what it's worth, they're built on Malwarebytes' EDR platform, which is no slouch. I mean, those guys know what they're doing. They've consistently scored really high in independent tests, so.
It's not like there's some fly-by-night operation.
Exactly.
Okay, so ThreatDown is like the security without stress option. What about when you need a bit more?
Right. Sometimes you need to bring out the big guns. That's where those tiered service models come in handy.
Right, like we were talking about with Kaspersky and OpenText.
Exactly. They give you options. You can dip your toes into the MDR water
Or cannonball right in.
Exactly. It all depends on your needs and your budget, of course.
So you're saying it's kind of like choosing between a gym membership and a personal trainer.
I like that analogy. With the gym membership, you've got access to all the equipment, but you're kind of on your own to figure things out.
Whereas with the personal trainer,
You've got someone there to guide you, create a custom workout plan, hold you accountable. So if you're just starting out or you're on a tight budget, maybe MDR Optimum is a good place to begin. But if you've got more complex needs or you want that white glove treatment, then
you go for the MDR expert option.
got it. Okay, what about Bitdefender and their whole analysis, not alerts approach? I remember you saying that alert fatigue was a big concern for you. Could this be the solution? It's definitely worth considering. I mean, at a certain point, too many alerts stop being helpful, right? They just become noise, and that's what Bitdefender is trying to avoid.
They want to cut through the noise and give you actionable intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
I can get behind that. But what about those pre-approved actions they were talking about? Could that be a problem?
It's a double-edged sword for sure. On the one hand, it can lead to faster incident response times.
Because you're not waiting for someone to manually approve every single step.
Right. But on the other hand, it means giving up some control over how those incidents are handled.
So again, it's about finding that balance between automation and customization, which probably applies to more than just Bitdefender, now that I think about it.
Totally. It's something to think about with any MDR provider, really. Because no matter how amazing the tech is, how great the features are.
It's the human element that really matters. You need a provider who's going to be a true partner, not just a vendor.
100%. And I think that's something that ESET really emphasizes, you know? Their whole thing is about being there for you every step of the way, providing that 24/7 support. It's like having an extension of your own security team.
Or a direct line to a team of cybersecurity superheroes.
There you go. And when you're facing down an army of cybercriminals, sometimes that's exactly what you need.
I don't know how I feel about an army of cybercriminals, but okay.
Fair point. But seriously, that level of support can be crucial because, let's be honest, this stuff can get really complicated really fast.
And it's constantly changing, too.
Exactly, which is why you need a provider who's going to stay ahead of the curve, who's going to keep you informed, who's going to be proactive, not just reactive.
So it's not enough to just have someone to call when things go wrong. You need that ongoing communication, those regular updates, that sense that they're always looking out for you.
Absolutely. Transparency is key. You need to know what they're doing, how they're doing it, and why.
And you need to trust that they have your best interests at heart. Okay, so we've talked about the importance of minimizing business disruption, managing security with limited resources, and finding a provider who's a true partner, not just a vendor. What's next?
The next step is to take all this information we've discussed and use it to create a short list of providers that you want to learn more about.
And then really grill them. Don't be afraid to ask the tough questions.
Exactly. This is a big decision. So don't just take their word for it. Dig into the details, get those SLAs in writing, and make sure you're 100% comfortable with your choice before you sign on the dotted line.
You know, picking an MDR provider is kind of like putting together a puzzle, isn't it?
Oh, so?
Well, you've got all these different pieces: technology, expertise, support, and you need to figure out how they all fit together to create a complete picture, a strong security posture.
I like that analogy. And just like with a puzzle, it's not enough to just have the right pieces. You need to know how to put them together.
Right. And that was all this research you've done comes in, all those data sheets, all those conversations we've been having.
Exactly. But it's not enough to just gather the information. You have to actually use it.
Right. So how do we do that? Where do we go from here?
Well, now that you have a better understanding of the MDR landscape, I think the next step is to start picturing these providers within your organization.
So it's not just about ticking boxes on a future list.
Right. It's about really trying to envision how each provider would actually function within your specific environment. How would their MDR solution integrate with your existing systems? How would their team work with yours?
And what about when things go wrong? Because let's face it, no security solution is perfect.
That's where those tough questions come in.
The ones that you should never be afraid to ask.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Dig into their incident response process. Ask about their SLAs, their communication protocols. What happens if and when they miss something?
Because at the end of the day, this isn't just about buying a product.
It's about choosing a partner, someone you trust to have your back when it matters most.
That's a great way to put it, because you're trusting them with a lot. Your data, your systems, even your reputation in some cases.
Exactly. So don't settle. Choose wisely.
Well said. We've covered a ton of ground today, from a mountain of MDR data sheets to, hopefully, a much clearer picture of what you need to protect your organization.
It's been a pleasure diving deep into all of this with you. And remember, in the world of cybersecurity, knowledge is power. The more you know, the better equipped you'll be to make the right decisions for your organization.
And on that note, we've come to the end of our MDR deep dive. Big thanks to our expert for walking us through all of this, and to you, our listeners, for joining us. Until next time, stay safe, stay secure, and stay curious.